the work you've done has been in some very interesting and probably very difficult parts of the world. What has been the most frightening moment of your work as a leader?
I don't actually have that much fear. I would actually do things and then look back at it and think, oh, that was a really dumb idea. I shouldn't have done that. But when I'm actually doing the work, I don't think about it. And when I was a journalist, I think a lot of people thought that I became quite callous in a sense because I can talk to a dying child who would die the next day. Yeah. And I just be focused on the story. Because I think, yes, you can feel it afterwards, but you're not doing the child any justice if you're being fearful or apprehensive or anxious or scared in front of her because she's dying. Mm-hmm. So I'm grateful for the pen and paper to allow me to do that. It just kind of cuts it off emotionally, in a sense, for that moment when I need to write that story.
Which is critical in terms of that story writing piece, because part of what you're doing is connecting enough with that person to powerfully tell their story.
Because I think if you're emotional, you're not doing them any favors. You're just being selfish in a sense, because it's your emotion, whereas she's the one suffering.
Is there a story that's arguably had the most profound influence on you personally?
A couple of years ago, I was based in Jakarta and working for a national newspaper. And I was in a really dark space in my life. And I was asked to cover a story about, it's called angkat tulang in Indonesian, which means basically to lift up the bones. So what they were doing was they were going to graveyards and they were taking out all the bones of the dead to make room for a highway, as you do. So it was a Muslim and Christian grave, and I actually that day went to a Muslim grave. And it was raining, and it was muddy, and there was one family there who was waiting for their son's body to be disinterred. Is that the word? Yeah. It took a day, basically, to go digging in for all the bones. His son was 24, and he died of something as silly as ulcers or something like that. They didn't have enough money to take him to the hospital. And the whole time the father was like, where's his skull? They couldn't find the skull was the last thing that they could find. And he was waiting all day for his skull to come in. And this was a 24-year-old boy who died a few years before. Wow. When they got all the bones together, his father was cradling the entire body. That was how, it was just bones. And they brought him over to the next plot where they were supposed to be moving the body. And I think that was when Azan, it was evening prayers started. And they put him in just as evening prayers started. And it was just, that just snapped me out.
That whatever troubles you had.
Oh, yeah. That was just, yeah.
That moment lifted you into a completely different place.
Completely. And I guess that's what I mean by the bigger picture. If you just take yourself out and look at how sometimes other people have to deal with other things, you can totally deal with what you've got.
You know, one of the things that we've noticed in life, not to mention just a research project around it, is it seems like it's really easy for senior leaders to lose the big picture, to not experience the kind of connection you just talked about with reality. Is that your observation? I mean, it's easy to become disconnected, and do you have any sense or observation of the forces or the influences that would push or cause a leader to disconnect?
I know a couple that are actually like that. They just stop being accessible. I think when you get too much press sometimes, and you get so high up in the food chain that people are too scared to approach you anymore. And if they don't make an effort to go down to the floor and actually be with their teams, then you're just going to be up there in the glass ceiling.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, that's why I guess in a way, I'm not that ambitious, but I love the accessibility of being with all sorts of people.
Yeah.
From either the 99 to the 1%. It's just nice to be able to kind of work your way around them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that's what's missing.
If you were looking at a group of 4-year-olds and you were capable of communicating to them, this is what matters for your future, what might one or two of those things be?
I would actually tell them to meet and talk to as many different people as they can from every single sector, every single industry, and read like a demon. Those, yeah, because it's stories. For me, the most important way to communicate, up or down, it's always stories.